Good.
So, hello everyone. Welcome to the Colombia Business School information session for MBA Spotlight 2024. I'm Ansh Kapoor, and with me is Kate Murphy. She's the Senior Associate Director for Admissions at Colombia Business School. And so today I'm going to start this session off, and then I will let Kate take over and tell us a little bit more about this MBA program. So we'll start with that quick overview, and then you all can send questions in the chat. We will go through them, as they come in with the most upvotes, whatever flies. And we will also have polls on the side. You can raise your hand, and I will then put those questions forward. So without further ado, everyone, please, Kate.
Thank you, Ansh, and welcome everybody. Thank you for taking the time to join the Columbia Business School session. My name is Kate. I have been part of the Columbia Business School admissions team for 5 years this summer, and really excited that we will be essentially kicking off our recruitment season for the 2025 entry points for the full-time MBA. And excited to share more with you about our application process and answer any questions that are top of mind. So without further ado, I will just run through some slides and hopefully save as much time as we can here for live Q&A. Anj, can you confirm that advanced? Okay, cool.
Yes,
so before I dive into the application process and the way that our semesters start and our entry point options, I do like to just start by highlighting the 5 pillars that are kind of the guiding priorities, if you will, of the Columbia Business School administration, staff, and faculty. Our fairly new, not so new anymore, Dean Costis Maglaris, has established these 5 pillars to really guide the mission of the school. So when we are, thinking about speakers that we want to bring to campus, or new electives that we want to introduce, or adjunct faculty members to join us to teach classes, these are kind of the 5 main spaces that we are prioritizing as a school, and look forward to, enhancing and elevating throughout the curriculum in terms of conferences, events, speakers, etc. So hopefully you see something on this slide that speaks to you and your interests and passions, because if that's the case, then there are lots of offerings and resources at CBS that can help support you in reaching goals within these areas. So this slide outlines the entry options for our full-time program. You will see that we have the full-time kind of standard flagship August entry program that you think of when you think of a full-time MBA program, that affords you the opportunity to spend your summer doing an internship. So you would join in August, you would do the core curriculum. There's one class that spills into the spring of core, and then you would take electives of your choice to kind of round out the rest of the degree. And the summer semester is reserved to do a full-time 10-week or so internship. The January entry is a unique kind of highlight of the CBS program, wherein if you don't necessarily need that internship to reach your professional goals, so if you don't need exposure to a new industry or a new function, and you can kind of achieve your career goals without that, we do offer a spring entry where you can take core classes in the spring term and then take classes over the summer instead of doing an internship, and meet up with the August entry class in the second year to kind of graduate all together as one full MBA class. Folks that are generally more attracted to the January entry are folks who have sponsorship from their company maybe, and they don't and they plan to return after they graduate, working for a family business, entrepreneurs, people who want to start their own companies, things like that generally gravitate toward the January entry point. But again, it really depends on your own kind of personal situation. And we're always happy to chat with you more about whether we think that the January entry could help propel you in the direction you're looking to go. Both entry points have the same access to all resources, clubs, organizations, career management center, etc. In terms of what we're looking for from a recruitment standpoint and when we're reviewing applications really holistically, we kind of like to think about it in 3 buckets: the academics, the personal characteristics, and the professional promise. Starting with academic strength, of course, we'll ask you to submit transcripts from any school where you've received academic credit. We are looking at your GPA from the school that conferred your bachelor's degree. So please do not calculate your own GPAs if you have transferred. Report it as it is reflected on the bachelor's degree conferred transcript. We don't have a minimum GPA requirement. In terms of test scores, they are required. We do not offer test score waivers. You have to submit your application with either a GMAT, GRE, or executive assessment score. There's no minimum requirement. You can take a peek at our website for the class profile if you want to get a sense of our GMAT averages and the range from the class that entered last year. But again, there's no minimum requirement. I see someone typed into the chat, what is EA? So executive assessment is another kind of standardized test designed for business school students who maybe have been out of school a little bit longer and are looking for a more abbreviated kind of version of the GMAT. We would highly recommend looking into that, taking some practice exams. You can take practice exams for all, and then the one that you perform the strongest on is the one we would suggest you take. We really want you to feel empowered to submit whatever scores you are most confident with. We don't have a preference for an exam. Whatever, again, you take if you've taken it more than once or you take more than one exam, feel free to submit the strongest score, and that's the one we will consider. Moving down to professional promise, we do ask for a copy of your resume, of course, to get a sense of what you've been up to. We really want to learn about your background, your accomplishments, your achievements, the ways in which you've really substantively impacted your organization. If you have had any career growth or progression, that looks really great. We want to get a sense of how, again, you've contributed in a meaningful capacity to the places that you've worked and the teams that you've worked on. Letter of recommendation is a really insightful part of the application. It's one of my favorite parts to read. It's a really nice way for us to get another perspective on the things that you have done in a working capacity with this individual, whether it be, sometimes things that don't necessarily make it into the application come through in the letter of recommendation, whether it's just a time where you went above and beyond at work or, helped a junior member of the team get up to speed on something. Those things don't necessarily come through in other parts of the app. So I really enjoy reading letters of recommendation to get those little anecdotes, to learn more about who you are as a person, which is really important to us in admissions. I should have started this slide by saying that the goal here is really to get to know you authentically, what genuinely motivates you and drives you and what you're passionate about. Obviously we do require the test scores. We're looking at your GPA, but of course, there's a lot more to it. So we are reading all applications from back to front. We would never not consider someone solely based on any one data point here on the slide. We really want to get to know who you are as a whole individual and how you're going to, contribute in a meaningful way to the Columbia Business School community and culture. Post-MBA goal, we'll ask you to share with us in the length of a tweet, which is really short, where you see yourself immediately after you complete the MBA. And then we give you a chance to elaborate on that in Essay 1. Essay 1 is to tell us more about your short-term, 3 to 5 years out of the MBA, and long-term dream job goals. I'll talk about the interview last. So moving over to personal characteristics, an integral part of the business school experience at CBS is the extracurriculars that you will have the opportunity to take advantage of. So obviously success in the classroom is really important, and academics are at the forefront of probably your process in researching MBA programs. But outside the classroom really rounds out the experience. We have over 80 student clubs and organizations and leadership opportunities for folks to take advantage of by way of our Career Management Center. There's what we call our CMC Fellows, which are second-year students who guide first-year students through the recruiting process. We have peer advisors who lead the orientation for MBA. We have tons of opportunities to get involved in different, segments of the school, and also by joining the boards of our various professional, affinity, and social clubs. The professional clubs are, again, essential to kind of landing your internship and being prepared when it comes to networking. So highly recommend looking into those opportunities and highlighting which ones you hope to become a part of and leverage the networks of within your application. That's important to us to see how you see yourself contributing once you get here. The second essay is highlighting our Phillips Pathway for Inclusive Leadership, better known as PPIL. It's a little bit of a mouthful, but that is our diversity, equity, and inclusion initiative at Columbia Business School. It is a co-curricular program that was designed with our DEI office and leadership team in conjunction with current students at the time. And essentially, it's a program that is now mandatory for all CBS students to complete during the MBA, and it is not a big lift. It's actually a really fun part of the experience wherein you get to take advantage of various events, speaker series, workshops that are already happening on campus, but if they fall within the PPIL window and are designated a PPIL event, which there are hundreds of them happening each year on campus at this point, that kind of fulfills the requirement of each semester, and you can share reflections and attend conversations that follow. And it's a really great way to ensure that our students are getting exposure to hearing from inclusive leaders across all industries at CBS and having the opportunity to dive deep into some difficult conversations and get comfortable in that space. As we definitely prioritize graduating inclusive leaders who are going to go out into the world as CBS alum with that in mind. So the essay is to share a time where you've demonstrated one of 5 skills that fall within the PPIL kind of initiative, and they are outlined pretty clearly for you in the essay prompt. And then the third essay is to tell us why you want to come to Columbia Business School and how you plan to make the most of your experience here. So again, advice there is to tell us maybe some clubs and organizations you hope to join, but also if there are any additional classes or faculty members you're excited to learn from, or resources or programs, centers and programs on campus that you are looking forward to getting involved with. Tell us that in the third essay for sure. Okay, and then finally is the interview. It is a mandatory part of the application process if you are invited to interview. Again, it is invitation only. It's usually about a 30 or so minute conversation with either an MBA student in the second year, an admissions officer, so someone like myself, or an alum of the program who has become a member of our alumni ambassador program. So all of us receive the same interview training, and all interviews are virtual. It would be, again, around a 30-minute Zoom conversation where the interviewer only has your resume. So they would not have access to your full application. They're coming into it just with a sense of what you've done to date. So advice for prep is to really, come ready to talk about why Columbia, why MBA, why now, and connect some of those dots, since again, they will only have access to review your resume at the interview. These are the essay questions, which I already kind of talked about, but again, talking about your professional goals, explaining a time where you have demonstrated or utilized one of the 5 skills outlined here: mitigating bias and prejudice, managing intercultural dialogue, addressing systemic inequity, understanding identity and perspective taking, or creating an inclusive environment. And then finally, how would you create an optimal MBA experience at CBS? So our deadlines. Our January application is open. We this year have made a slight change to how we will be reviewing January 2025 applications. In years past, it was completely rolling with a deadline in the fall, and we have this year decided to almost go all in on the rounds approach like we have for August, but not totally. So there will be 2 rounds for January 2025 entry. Round 1 is June 18th and round 2 is August 15th. That said, though, we will be reading applications in the order that they are received and releasing invitations to interview and decisions on a rolling basis. So you will hear from us likely sooner than the application deadline. Which is a little bit different than where we have decided to go with the August rounds, where we don't review applications until after that round deadline, which I'll talk more about on the next slide. So I think you can think of this as kind of rolling admissions within 2 rounds. And if you are very sure that you want to pursue this January entry point and you know that it aligns well with your professional goals, we would definitely point you in the direction of applying for round 1, which again is June 18th and 1 week from today. Our August 2025 deadlines were recently posted to our website as well, so highly recommend taking a look there for more information. But generally speaking, last year we made a pretty big overhaul to our application process at Columbia Business School to align better with our peers and operate on a rounds process. So historically, we were the only rolling admissions school with our peers for MBA. And we, again, have recently made the switch to rounds and we'll continue on that journey for the foreseeable future. So here you'll see that our August entry round 1 deadline is September 10th. The round 2 deadline will be January 7th. And the final round 3 deadline will be April 1st. We hope to release interview decisions by the dates in the center column and final decisions in the column on the right. So if you are familiar with our old process, we used to have an early decision option. You can think of round 1 as the closest thing to kind of like an early decision. Of course, there's no commitment there, but we do really, appreciate folks who are all in on round 1, applying early in the cycle. Just the nature of the class, there will be more seats available in the class the earlier that you apply, depending on the round. So hopefully this is helpful. Something else to consider is that if you are interested in being considered for institutional funding, you would need to apply by the round 2 deadline in January for priority consideration of institutional funding, meaning merit-based fellowships, need-based scholarships that are determined by a senior subset of our enrollment team. Okay, I think that about wraps up full-time. I did want to just call out that there are a variety of other ways to pursue an MBA at CBS. We have a deferred enrollment program for folks who are in undergrad or went directly into a graduate program from undergrad with no break and have no professional work experience. You can apply in the final year of that degree program. If admitted, you would go work for 2 to 5 years and we would save a seat for you in the class, and you would let us know within that 2 to 5 year window when you want to matriculate with the rest of the full-time MBA group. So that's the deferred enrollment program. The deadline is usually in April. We do have a couple of dual degrees with our peers over at the law school and the engineering school. So we have a 3-year JD MBA and an MBA XMS, which is an executive MS in applied science and engineering. The round 1, 2, and 3 deadlines will align with the full-time deadlines. So hopefully that's helpful if anybody's interested in that. And then we do have some executive MBA programs. There are 3. There is a Saturday program where you come to campus on Saturdays to take classes. There's a Friday, Saturday, which requires the time sponsorship from your employer to allow for you to come to campus on Fridays to take classes. And then the global program is in partnership with London Business School. So if you have interest in these programs, we have dedicated recruitment teams that are more than happy to chat with you more about specifics around the application process and the deadlines, but wanted to make sure folks knew that they existed. And with that, I think we will have plenty of time for some live Q&A.
All right. Thank you so much, Kate. That was wonderful.
Sure.
Everyone, yes, the Columbia Fall 2025 application is live, and we can answer more questions about that during the Q&A now. So we'll go by upvotes. If you have questions, please post them on the side. There are a couple polls going live, which round you're applying in, which test you're taking. Please answer those on the side. Kate a better idea of where everyone is in the application process and what kind of tests and scores to expect. So the first question, we'll go short on stage. Does Colombia offer admission fee waivers for this event?
We do not offer fee waivers for event attendance. We really want to, for really the sake of fairness and equity across folks who may not have the opportunity to attend events, we don't offer fee waivers for event attendance. Only if you are a full-time student or in the military would be reasons that we would consider fee waivers, and the options for proof of that is on our website.
We'll go to, if a student is on the lower end of the GPA range, what initiatives, certifications, courses are generally considered okay to supplement the GPA when applying to Columbia Business School?
Yeah, this is a great question. We don't have a minimum GPA requirement for a reason, because we understand that there are sometimes extenuating circumstances that cause students to not be able to excel to the best of their ability during undergrad. And that's actually something I didn't bring up as part of the application process, but there is the opportunity to write what's called an optional essay or a fourth essay to illuminate anything that you want the AdCom to know that maybe isn't coming through in other parts of the app. So for example, if you failed a class or you withdrew from a class or you had to take a leave of absence during undergrad and that's reflected on your transcript, give us an explanation as to why. Use the fourth essay to tell us why, so that we don't have to connect any dots on our own or try to figure it out on our own or leave us questioning. I think that's a great place to tell us the why. But to answer this question more directly, I think the test scores can sometimes help supplement if you have lower quant scores during undergrad, and then you're able to kind of bolster that with a GMAT score, for example. That's one reason why we do require test scores, to get a better sense of those things, to give you a chance to do something more recently where maybe in undergrad you didn't make the best choices, for example, and that's another chance for you to kind of bolster on the academic bucket. We don't require any certifications. We wouldn't encourage you to go out and get certifications unless they really directly align with your industry and your function. If you have concerns about your ability to succeed in the core is pretty rigorous. We have seen folks go take quant heavy courses online, for example, or pursuing that can, for your own confidence, I think is helpful. Again, it is not a requirement from the admissions committee to do something like that. So I think generally getting involved outside of your work responsibilities, leaning into the leadership opportunities that you can take advantage of at work, going above and beyond at work, lean into the professional side if your GPA is on the lower end, because again, we're not making any decisions on one single sole data point. And the GPA is one of the only things in the application that you cannot go back and change. So focus on what is in your control, which would be to kind of increase your test scores or lean in more to the extracurriculars, volunteering, leadership, or professional space. Hopefully that helps.
Thank you. How inclined is admissions committee to admit a person possessing 10 years of work experience, given the fact that the average work experience at Columbia is around 5 to 6 years?
Yeah, good question. So you are right. The full-time MBA average is between 4 and 6 years, so a 5-year average. But there are folks in the class with less and more. We review every application individually and are assessing based on what you've done and the quality of the work experience you've had, not necessarily the quantity of the years, and the goals. If the MBA makes sense for you at 10 years and the full-time, it makes sense for you to take a pause and lean into the full-time program, and it's going to help you make that switch or pivot, that's okay. We absolutely admit folks with more than 5 years of work experience. And again, we're looking to glean from your essays why now and why it makes sense at this juncture in your career to pursue the MBA. But absolutely would encourage you to apply with that many years.
Okay. Next one. Is this STEM MBA or regular MBA? So
it is STEM. Yep, all of our MBA programs at CBS are STEM designated and afford international students the 3-year OPT.
Is there any flexibility regarding the application fee for international applicants or those facing financial hardship?
Unfortunately, there is not.
Whom to get LOR from, letter of recommendation from, when you're working in a family business?
That's a great question. And we have a lot of folks who come to us with family business backgrounds and goals. So generally speaking, we ask that your letter of recommendation come from your current direct supervisor, which I don't think I mentioned earlier. So I'm glad you brought this up. That's ideal. But we understand fully that family business and other situations too can sometimes prohibit you from asking your current direct supervisor to write the letter of recommendation on your behalf, whether that be a promotion or a raise on the line, or maybe they're not super, jazzed about their employees going to pursue business school, so you're not comfortable approaching them yet to tell them about your plans. That's okay, as long as you tell us why. So there's a box on the application to check. I'm not asking my current direct supervisor to write my letter, and a brief blurb why. So for Bona, in this case, you would say, I work for family business and my boss is my father or uncle or whatever the case may be. And then you can think critically about somebody maybe you've worked with in the past, a past supervisor or colleague that's senior to you that can, speak in a meaningful way about your capacity to contribute to an organization. A client would be acceptable. So there are a couple of options. We're pretty flexible here, as long as it's someone who you have worked with in a professional capacity, who can ideally be in a senior position to you, but a client sometimes can work as well if it's limited options. So feel free to email us if you have questions, if you'd like to get it confirmed in writing that we would accept it before you go out and ask them, but there are options.
Okay, just a second, looking for the next one. Okay. If someone gets admitted for January 2025 intake, but wants to start from August 2025 onwards, was that possible?
So we do not offer deferrals to future terms. Folks are expected to start the program in the entry point that they were admitted for. That said, if you are admitted for January and something comes up at work or personally, and you actually think that the August 2025 entry would be better for you, you can withdraw, and we would encourage you to reapply for a future term. So we do not grant deferrals to future terms. You would have to withdraw and reapply, but we look really highly upon reapplicants, and I don't say that lightly. We really do. We understand sometimes that things happen, and we appreciate the commitment to pursuing a degree at CBS if you take the time to reapply.
Will reapplicants' previous application be considered in the review?
Yes. So just so everybody on the call knows, you're considered a reapplicant if you're applying in the year directly following when you applied. If you skip a year in between, you're not technically considered an official reapplicant, wherein you would be asked to complete a whole application in its entirety again. If you're applying in the year directly following, we only ask you to complete one essay. It's called the reapplicant essay, and it's really just to tell us what you have done to enhance your candidacy since the last app. And to answer your question, Fiona, we will have access to read your essays from the prior application and letter of recommendation, because we do ask and require that you have a new recommender submit a letter for your reapp.
After being admitted to the deferred MBA program, will I be able to enroll into the JD MBA program during the 2 to 5 years?
Yes, you can opt for the JD MBA, but there is a little bit of a nuanced process that I don't want to speak in too much detail to here, but it is an option. And if that's something you're interested in, you can definitely reach out to our AdCom for DEP, Deferred Enrollment Program, and they will be able to walk you through the steps for that trajectory.
So I know we kind of touched on this in the session, but what kind of scholarships are available?
Yeah, so at Columbia Business School, institutional funding is what we call, the ways in which students help to finance their MBA degree. There are kind of three buckets, I guess. The merit side. So we assess folks for merit fellowships solely based on their admissions application. There's nothing else that you need to do or submit or fill out in order to be considered for merit-based aid. Again, it is solely based on your application to the MBA program, and you do have to apply by the round 2 deadline for priority consideration. That is in January. And this can range from, $20K to full tuition, depending on the nature of your application. But we're looking here for things like academic excellence, strong leadership demonstrated, great professional promise, things of that nature can help us determine if you are eligible for a merit fellowship. You can also apply. It's an application that becomes available after you're invited to interview for need-based scholarships, which is determined by our Office of Financial Aid. So they're a wonderful team that would be happy to answer any questions you have and provide guidance in filling out the need-based scholarship application. And finally, there are student loans that folks can apply for. We have no cosigner international student loans available. And generally speaking, I would say most folks use a combination of all three to finance the program.
We have a lot of upvotes on this one. What is the minimum GMAT score required?
There is no minimum GMAT score required. You do not have to meet a minimum in order to be considered. We, as I mentioned before, will review every application that we receive for the full-time MBA program, regardless of the score. You can take a peek. I can drop it into the chat of our class profile, which will give you a sense of averages and ranges from the class that entered in 2023. But again, there is no minimum requirement.
How does acceptance percentage differ between round 1 and round 2? Would you say there's an advantage of applying in round 1 over round 2?
So I don't know the acceptance percentage offhand. And again, we've only done this once. This was our first year doing rounds, and the class has not even matriculated yet. So we don't even have this data really to report out. But with that said, there is definitely an advantage to applying round 1 over round 2, just because it demonstrates your commitment to Columbia Business School by applying round 1. And as I mentioned earlier, it's a clean slate. There are more seats in the class, and we are just getting a sense of the pool in round 1. So I think if you know you want to come to Columbia Business School and it's where you see yourself, definitely prepare now to submit in advance of the round 1 deadline.
Hi, Kate. Could you please let us know if there are any opportunities for interested people to visit campus and interact with students and faculty?
Absolutely. We offer what's called a class visit program and a campus visit program. And I'll tell you a little bit more about each. So the campus visit program is an opportunity to come to campus, hear a presentation pretty similar to what I just presented about the application from a member of the admissions committee. So you get some face time. We call it a roundtable with admissions, where you will get to network with folks in the room, learn a little bit about our application process, and do open Q&A with admissions. And then you will have the opportunity to hear from current MBA students. So they come in, usually we have at least 4 current MBA students in the room without admissions present to answer any student experience questions that you have about CBS. So that's the campus visit program. And then we do also have what's called a class visit program, which just went live for our summer term. We are lucky that we're able to offer class visit opportunities over the summer because of that J-term entry, where we have classes happening over the summer, which is a little bit of an advantage over our peers. And I will put a link in the chat here if you're interested in seeing what classes are offered. We try to offer as many as we can across different industries. There will be more offered into July, and then it will be much more robust come the fall. If you are interested in visiting in the fall and want to wait, I would say there will be a lot more class visit opportunities then, but there are some now. If you're coming to New York, it's a great way to just sit in the room with current students and hear from a faculty member, get a sense of what it's like to be a student at CBS.
Thanks for taking out the time. Could you shed some light on how CBS's location provides an advantage to students?
Sure. We are very lucky to be located in New York City, which is kind of the center of everything. We I would say have about 50% of students outside of that summer internship pursuing what's called an in-semester internship. So they can stack classes, take them in the morning and go jump on the subway downtown and do an internship in the afternoon. For example, we have no classes on Fridays, so students use Fridays to do internships during the semester, which is definitely an advantage of being in a city like New York. That is, everything is just at your fingertips and the access is really unmatched. You also will have the opportunity to leave campus, but also we bring really great adjunct faculty members up to campus to teach electives, who are working in their fields and industries and bringing that experience to the classroom each and every day and proposing the challenges they face that day to our students and letting them get together and propose solutions. So I think the speakers that we're able to bring to campus and the ability for students to get off campus and get that real, bridging the theory and the practice is our thing. And it really is true. Being in New York gives you a chance to get the exposure to folks and practitioners and leaders in all industries. Really, every industry has a headquarters in New York, is a second to none experience for a business degree specifically. And we still have a really tight-knit community too. We have that campus feel. We're on our new campus in Manhattanville, where our two buildings, Geffen and Kravis Hall, are solely dedicated to Columbia Business School students, graduate students. So it's a really nice place to learn and network, and then also jump on the one train down to Wall Street in 25 minutes if that's the industry you're looking to work in, and be able to get that real-time exposure too.
Okay. What is the international acceptance rate? Is there any course or program where I could have a semester or course in another college? Any partnership of that sort?
So we don't have, partnerships like that. And generally, because it is a 2-year program, most folks don't opt to do like a study abroad because there are only 4 semesters. And there's the first semester in the fall, you're taking the core. It's very rigorous. You're going to hit the ground running with recruiting and things like that in the fall. And then everything kind of goes quickly from there. It's like drinking from a fire hose. So I would say there are a ton of opportunities to go abroad and study like a block week course abroad, or do something called a study tour or a global immersion program. But generally, folks don't opt to take a full semester abroad. I don't think we publish our international acceptance rate, but there is on the class profile some data around geography. And just so you know, generally each year our full-time MBA class is over 40% international. So we have a very robust international and global student population.
Okay. Just to let everyone know, we are nearing the end of the session. We have about 6 minutes left. So I think just saw a question that, would kind of summarize the session very well. I can find it again. Okay, so while I find that, we can do another question. Is the curriculum at Columbia University a good fit for startup founders or small and medium-sized enterprise owners looking to scale their businesses?
Absolutely. I'm going to drop something in the chat, which is a link to learn more about our Lang Center, the Eugene Lang Center for Entrepreneurship, which is kind of our hub for all things entrepreneurs. We have a very strong entrepreneurial spirit at Columbia Business School. Many, many great have come out of CBS. I don't know if you're familiar with Beyond Meat, Compass, Daily Harvest. I think there's a lot of ways you can leverage the connections of other folks in the program who have gone off to be successful launching their own startups. But while you're on campus, I would highly recommend looking into the resources offered by way of the Lang Center. All of the electives and classes that you would take under the Lang Center would be entrepreneurially focused, but there are also tons of resources offered by way of the Lang Center to help support you in your endeavors. We have a greenhouse program, the startup lab, etc. So highly recommend leveraging those things. And we also did a recorded event with the Lang Center leadership team because we have a lot of students who are interested in this space, which is on our website. And I will drop the recorded events page into the chat as well. And if you scroll down to industry professional, you can see that we did a Lang Entrepreneurship Center event on the October 25th date. And they do a really deep dive into the resources and some of the other folks that have come out of CBS who have been successful.
So we have a few questions on tests. So I'll display one of them. Hey, Kate, when are we supposed to send the GMAT official scores? Is it during the application or during admission after interview?
So this is a good question. When you apply for the program, you only need to submit a unofficial student copy of scores and transcripts. It's only once you are admitted after the interview that we would require you to send us verified official copies of scores and transcripts.
I'm currently still an undergrad. Will be receiving my last term in December 2024. Would I still be able to be considered for the January full-time intake and submit my last term GPA after?
So no, you would have to have a conferred bachelor's degree on your transcript at the time of application to apply for our full-time programs. That said, if you are in undergrad and you are going into your last semester, you can, at this point, you've kind of missed the opportunity to apply for the deferred enrollment program. The deadline was in April. And we would encourage you to go get at least 1 year of full-time work experience after you complete the degree in December before you apply for the full-time program. But please feel free to reach out to our admissions team if you want to talk nuances of that and get some more advice and guidance related to the full-time program. But to directly answer your question, no, you do have to have the conferred degree in order to apply.
And just one last question, and we're running out of time. Hello, Kate. If you could summarize CBS culture with one word, which one would it be and why?
I would say collaborative. We make a really, really valiant effort at CBS, starting with the recruitment standpoint to ensure we're bringing in folks who are kind and supportive and want to see each other succeed. I think we have a little bit of a reputation being in New York and being a competitive program that it could be a little cutthroat or competitive in nature, but that is so not the case. And I really stand by that. And if you've talked to any of our current students, I hope they would echo that sentiment that it's a really nice community feel. You'll be placed in a cluster. You'll be assigned to a learning team. And our Office of Student Affairs does a really good job of thoughtfully crafting those groups so that you will have the opportunity to get exposure to folks who don't share a similar background as you. And I think that really fosters the community of collaboration. And on average, our students are part of like 5 to 7 clubs, and they go above and beyond to help us in admissions. If you've had a chance to connect with any students at CBS, probably they're in what's called the Hermes Society, which is like our student ambassador group who help us in admissions to chat with prospective and admitted students. And all that is to say is because they have that like pay it forward mentality to help folks go through the application process because they've done it and they want to share their insights. So it's a really nice teamwork driven collaborative culture.
All right. Well, everyone, thank you so much for attending this session. Kate, thank you so much for everything you have told us about Colombia.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for all the questions, everyone. If they weren't answered, please feel free to stop by the booths. There'll be current students from 2 to 3 p.m. In the booth area. So thank you so much, and I will see you in the next session. Thank you again, Kate.
Thank you. Have a good day.